All right, so we're going to introduce our guest speaker today. Joe Seamone, also known as Boca Joe, is a landscape management consultant and a certified professional horticulturalist for McFall and Berry Landscape Management, a commercial landscape company based out of the Washington, D.C. area. Since 1989, Joe has worked in the landscape management industry in the metropolitan area, as well as Florida, the Bahamas, and I'm surprised he's back up here. He should have stayed in the Bahamas and enjoyed the warm weather, and across the country in the area of commercial landscape management. He has also visited tropical gardens across the country and in the UK as well, has had an interest in growing and photographing tropicals and exotics his whole life. Joe has completed about 50 credits in the landscape technology program at Germantown, as Steve mentioned. Joe's also one of the co-founders of the Virginia Palm Society and has authored a home gardener care sheet for Virginia Tech regarding growing and maintaining hardy exotics in the region, as well as articles published in a number of places, including USA Today, The Post, Washington Gardener Magazine, and Tropical Gardening. Joe has presented more than 30 seminars on the topic, including the National Arboretum, Brookside Botanical Gardens, Master Gardener, and local garden clubs, and at the Merrifield Garden Center. And we certainly are happy to welcome Joe today as our speaker. You're on.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for showing up this morning. Let me see if I get the slideshow up here. These pop-up windows make it hard. Let's see. Okay. All right. I think we got that. Everybody see that? Okay. Does this sound good?
Sounds good, Joe.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure. Okay, let's get started here. I like calling this seminar, it's a jungle out there. I don't know, it's just kind of fun. But I'm going to talk about how to create, maintain, and grow your own tropical paradise in our temperate climate here. Just real quick, I've grown up my whole life in Montgomery County. We lived in Germantown from 1978 to 2015 when we moved down to Southern Delaware after that. So I've done a lot of this in Montgomery County and I continue to do it here. In spite of the fact that we're where we are now, it's pretty similar in climate, and I've had some pretty impressive cold temperatures since then to test the stuff I'm going to be talking about. So just a little background on that. Okay. This is a picture I took in Sterling, Virginia at my friend's place several years ago. I thought it was a lot of fun, but he's got all kinds of exotic stuff here. He lives in Sterling, which is near Dulles Airport, so pretty much the same weather as Dulles. The whole concept here is, and I forgot to put this here, but basically throw the rules out the window and have some fun and try things. I think you're going to see later some plants that you never would have guessed would be hardy in our region without any care at all. So you'd have to kind of think outside the box. I understand it's not for everyone, but myself and my friends in the area have had a lot of fun over the years with all this stuff. I wanted to mention briefly about some of these terms here. The ecotypes are genetically distinct geographic variety, and all that means is it's basically something that's native to a certain area of whatever state that is. The most important thing I think here I've come to find out is the provenance of the plants, which is basically the place of origin, which there's a lot of inherent hardiness in the genetics of the plant, but the place of origin really is important when we're talking about what we're talking about today, especially some of the hardy palms and things like that. Plants that are grown or native to the Carolinas are much hardier for us than something grown in Florida or Georgia. So it's important to understand that part. Obviously, siting is important with microclimates, soil, water, and fur. I've also learned early season planting on pretty much everything we're talking about today works out great. And April is my usual timeline for most of this stuff. And obviously, absolute temperatures and soil moisture And I wanted to mention too, this is not what we're talking about today is not due to any climate change. These are plants that are genetically hardy that I guess over the years, many people were so conservative, they didn't even want to consider trying these things. And that's more what happened here rather than, well, it's climate change, it's gotten warmer, so we can grow this. And I don't feel that's the case, but yeah, I just briefly talked about provenance, which I think, again, is one of the most important things here for these plants. Also, their genetics, which make them suited to certain soils and climates, etc. A lot of them surprisingly match up to our region. Microclimate is basically the place in your yard where the snow melts first. So that's going to be the warmest. It's going to have the most protection probably from the cold winter winds, that kind of thing. And we did some interesting tests years ago about sighting and protection. And we had a thermal gun, and we found out there are a lot of old wives' tales about houses radiating heat and keeping plants protected and that kind of thing that just simply don't hold up. And also the big one is wind chill, which really doesn't affect plants except from the standpoint that it could dehydrate the plants if you have a lot of wind and it's cold, but the actual wind chill is irrelevant to the hardiness. So I'm going to go through a couple of them here. I got lots of pictures. We're going to talk about citrus, live oaks, eucalyptus, hardy bananas, Fatsia japonica, hardy palms, hardy ginger, and there are quite a few hardy flower bulbs. This one is kind of on the line. The regular citrus like you have in Florida can actually be planted in the ground if you do some kind of protection around it. And there's a couple about a mile from me here in southern Delaware that's done it since 2005. And they've got this whole system set up. And I'm not saying you need to do this for everything, but they really wanted to go out on this. They've got full size 6 to 8 foot Florida grapefruit, oranges, lemon trees in their yard. And they use this system to cover the plants in the winter, keep them at a minimal temperature so they don't freeze. And they harvest bushels of citrus every year. And again, this is since 2005. I've been over there a couple times. It's just amazing. The hardy orange, the Panceros, is, I think, good till about zone 5. It's a kind of a bitter orange, but as you can see here, you can make mimosas with it. You can squeeze the juice and do, we've done it with chicken and stuff like that. And this is completely hardy. This is a picture of a friend of mine in South Central Pennsylvania with his tree. They fruit prolifically every year. But they are pretty sour, so you need to add sugar to whatever. But it's pretty neat. You can go out and pick your own citrus. And again, this is zone 5 hardy, so for us there would be absolutely no protection needed in the wintertime for something like this. Oh, and before I forget, I'm going to list a bunch of sources later, and I'm going to send Steve a PDF of this presentation, which will have clickable links in it. If you're interested in any of this stuff, you can go to the source and learn more or order plants or whatever. This is a citrimella, which is a hardy orange crossed with a grapefruit. This one's kind of borderline in our area, but some people have had success with it, and it's very, very edible and sweet. Kind of like what I said, cross between an orange and a grapefruit. We stumbled on this several years ago. Apparently, the USDA had developed a hardy sweet orange called US 52 decades ago. And that was pretty successful for us. This is my friend's yard in Sterling, Virginia. Fruit is very seedy, but it had a great taste to it. And it was kind of neat to be able to walk outside and harvest these in December. This is another interesting one here. It's called a Thomasville citronquat, which is a cross between a sweet orange and a kumquat. So it's also got a hardy orange, the Ponceres, in its genetics. So it's pretty much, once it's established, it's good down to 0 or so without really any damage. The fruits can be eaten whole, just like a kumquat. I've had them. In fact, I have a tree. I'll show you a picture in a moment. But it's another interesting one to try. Good microclimate. Mine is on the east side of the house, so it gets sun during the season from sunrise till about noon or 1 o'clock. But obviously it's protected from the winter winds, not the cold temperatures, but the winter winds. And that's a picture of a kumquat up top, and the picture on the bottom here is the actual citronquat. So it has a very thin skin, a few seeds, but it's pretty tasty. The next plant, and this one really surprised me, was the live oak, Quercus virginiana. I had a friend back in the early 2000s collected live oak acorns from Williamsburg, Virginia, and the National Arboretum. And these live oaks have been there for decades, I believe, since the 60s. So he collected the acorns, sprouted them, grew them, and planted them out in his yard in Northern Virginia, near Sterling. Those trees are now 25, 30 feet tall. They have no hardiness issues. And obviously, this is a good example of where the provenance is very important. I think if you had gotten acorns from a live oak in Mississippi, they probably would have died by now. But these were from trees that have been in Williamsburg or in the DC area for decades. So they had the genetics already there, and it worked out really well. Here's some seedlings I started myself in my yard in 2016 off of the trees that my friend grew from the acorns that he collected. They grow very fast. Here's a picture just a year later after, no, I'm sorry, 2 years later after I collected the acorns. And it's out in the wide open. This is a current photo here of my 2 trees, and you can see the trunk caliper, how thick it is. In the 10 years I've had them, they have not defoliated once. They tend to lose most of their leaves in the spring. That's just the way they do things. But as far as cold hardiness, these have been in wide open, no protection. I've actually had temperatures here in southern Delaware during that time down as low as 4 below 0. We had some snow cover that year, and they really didn't have any issues. So this is a great one to try, but again, it's very important to get acorns from known hardy trees. And we've actually, the group of us that started these have shared these acorns with people in about 13 states now who want to test them, where they everywhere from Kentucky to Ohio to Utah, and all through the East Coast. So it's interesting. It's a lot of fun. This is a picture, and actually this is from almost 10 years ago, of my friend's live oaks that he collected the acorns from the trees in Williamsburg. And this was back in 2017. You can see how big they are. He's in Annandale, Virginia. But great evergreen. This is my other friend in Sterling. And again, these pictures are almost 10 years old, but these trees are just gigantic now. This one I've had a lot of fun with, the eucalyptus. There are 3 or 4 species that are completely hardy in our region and do well. The big enemy that I've seen to the eucalyptus are really high winds, or a lot of ice, which can break the tree and damage it. But as far as hardiness, they really are tough, and they have what's called a lignotuber. I think I'm saying that right. It's like a swollen growth at the stem at the base which can actually store starch and dormant buds that allows the plant to resprout after damage from cold in our region, if we do get something that cold. Here's some pictures here. The plant on the far left is the snow gum. The plant in the center is a Eucalyptus neglecta in Sterling, Virginia. And you can see how big this thing is. They've got pretty much evergreen leaves, very thick and leathery. Don't know of any insects or disease in our region that would affect these. This is my champion eucalyptus I had in Germantown. And you can see it's up to the second floor window. Unfortunately, that fall, we had a hurricane. And I forget which one it was, but anyway, it blew the thing down, just cracked it off right at the ground. And it was sad to see, but this thing had made it prior to that through ice storms and snow and cold. It's just, again, it's just another fun thing to try in our region. This is my same friend in Sterling, Virginia, with his eucalyptus. We've got Eucalyptus neglecta on the left, and the snow gum, which is Eucalyptus passiflora on the right. These trees, actually his tree on the left, he planted in 2005. And with a couple of the polar vortices during that, between then and now, it did die to the ground, but they resprout vigorously and grow 4 to 6 feet in the first season and just rebound. So it's really something to consider. I know people have questions about these and their root systems and if they're going to damage the house and stuff, but in our region, it's a totally different animal than, say, the eucalyptus in California, which get hundreds of feet high and the roots go everywhere. These trees act kind of completely different here. And again, you may have it die back in a really severe winter, but as far as I know, with all my friends that we've grown these since the early 2000s, I don't know of any that outright just died and did not come back. So it's another one to try. This is one I have out back, which is one of the hardier ones. The leaves are really, really thick and leathery, which I think helps with the cold in the winter. As a snapshot of the one winter, and the bottom picture I wanted to put here, you can see my Eucalyptus neglecta over here. And I wanted to put that, this was the second winter, I think, after planting this. And these are current pictures of that same tree. So it'll be 10 years in April. And you can see the caliper of the tree trunk. It's up above the second story windows. It did burn back last winter, and the main reason was, I don't know if you remember, and unfortunately, I think we're heading the same way this winter. Last winter was really, really dry. I don't think we had any rain from, I don't know, November to February, and we're kind of heading that way with this winter too. But because of that dryness, the leaves burnt. We had a low, I think, of about 8 or 10, which it had experienced before with no issues, but it did burn. But it completely refoliated in the spring. Didn't really have any actual dieback. So it's a tough plant. So the neglecta is probably my #1 choice for our area. And of course, you plant eucalyptus, you get all sorts of exotic fauna that come through the garden. I've got flamingos here, all different colors. and it even attracted toucans. So, you have to have fun with this. Hardy bananas is another great group of plant. The Musa baju is the hardiest one. It's probably zone 5 hardy. In our region, you don't have to do anything but plant it. You don't have to mulch it. I kind of tell people, you kind of think of this the way you would treat an ornamental grass, meaning it grows up during the season, it gets gigantic, frost comes, it browns all the leaves and it dies to the ground. You cut off the dead stalks, and next year it starts over again and slowly increases in size. But you can see the size of this one here. This was down in Bethesda, I think, several years ago. But this is a great one to use. And this is my friend's yard where he planted them all around his pool, his in-ground pool. So he had this whole I mean, look at the size of these things. This was in late August one summer. It just changes the whole atmosphere. And that's a view from up on the deck. So if you're looking for a hardy banana, this Musa Baju, this is the one. The common name is Chinese fiber banana, I think. But this is the one to get if you like this look. They like good soil, lots of water. I found that fish emulsion is a great fertilizer for these. Another banana that's hardy in our region is Musa velutina, which has these ornamental bananas. They are edible, but they're completely filled with these BB-sized seeds that will crack your tooth open if you chomp down on them. So it does have, I mean, if you can get to the banana part, it's good, but it's more for an ornamental. It blooms reliably every summer in our region. Plants get about 5 feet tall, die down to the ground in the winter, and come back the next year, and it slowly increases in size. Musa ornata is another great one. I have this one myself here, and same thing. It blooms reliably every summer. It's got beautiful pink flowers, and if you look here, I don't know if you know about this or not, but the flower right here pollinates these bananas here. Each one of these little pieces here is basically a hand of bananas. And as this flower pushes out, this petal flips back. If the bananas get pollinated, then you get a hand of bananas like you see here. So it's pretty cool to see that process. But this is a very reliable plant in our region. And of course, you can become one of the bunch if you grow bananas. I found this picture, I don't know what year this is, but I thought it was pretty funny. These guys thought to pose and get this photo. This was a big surprise to me. Fatsia japonica, which is basically grown and sold as a houseplant, but it is completely hardy in our region. It likes good soil, part shade out of the midday sun. It's got November flowers that the honeybees absolutely love. And between 4 or 5 of us here in the area, we've grown these since 2005 through all the polar vortices in between, and they've just done nothing but thrived. This is a picture of a flower on my plant. They usually bloom in November, but you can see the bees all over this thing. It has a slight fragrance, no big deal, but they are evergreen. I also have this Fatsia japonica variegata, which has this beautiful creamy white and green leaves. It's evergreen. I don't have a picture here, but once the temperature, let's say, gets below 20 or so, the whole thing, the leaves just flop, and you look at it and you think, oh my God, the whole thing is dead. But as soon as the temperature gets above 35 or so again, it looks like this again. It's pretty amazing. And normally it's evergreen, and in the spring it will lose some of the older leaves along the stems, but it's basically an evergreen. I have this one planted on the north side of my house since 2017, so it gets the full brunt of the winter winds and the cold. Really doesn't get any sun in the winter until probably 3 o'clock. But it's thrived. It's just thrived here, and good soil. I do keep it watered. I kind of treat these like any plant that you want to thrive, especially a broadleaf evergreen like camellias or azaleas. If you're in a drought, you need to give them extra water. You need to have decent soil. If you do that, you'll see these same results. This is one I got 11 years ago. It's also variegated. It's called camouflage. It has this yellow-green variegation in it, and this thing is amazing. The temperatures, these have come through again. Temperatures, as I had one winter, I had 6 below zero, and some of the older leaves got burnt, but that was the extent of the damage. So it's another one to try. If you go, you have to go into the houseplant department where you buy these. And in fact, I was at Merrifield and I talked to the woman there, and it told her how we had grown these outside for years, and I thought she was going to faint and fall on the floor because it's a house plant. It's a house plant, but and like I said earlier, I learned, because I've been fooling with this stuff my whole life. Why not try some of these things? You never know what results you're going to get until you try. And this was the biggest surprise, and there's probably 5 of us in the area that have grown these as far back as 2005, and they're still thriving. So this is one to look for. If you want the fancier one, like this camouflage or the variegata, you may have to get it online, or you might find it in a local greenhouse. But I'd recommend, if you want to do that, to go in March or April and check out the houseplant section, and then get it right in the ground so it can get established before winter. This is my friend's in Sterling, Virginia. His plant has been in the ground since 2005 and still thriving to this day. This is probably my favorite, the hardy palms. And this is where provenance is really important with these. I like the Sable Minor and the Sable Louisiana are my 2 favorites. The Sable Louisiana is kind of an eco-type. I'm not sure how they classify it now, of Sable Minor. But these palms basically have underground trunks, so they don't really have a trunk above the ground, which I think really helps with their hardiness. The needle palm is probably the hardiest palm out there once it's established, probably 20 below zero with no damage. And I've been growing the Sable Minor and Sable Louisiana since about 2006, both in Germantown and here where I am now in Southern Delaware. And the Carolina Minors have just been superior as far as the amount of growth, the hardiness. They've really proven themselves. And I want to put this up here because I'm sorry, it's easy sometimes. You see something like this at Home Depot, and what I've learned is 2 things. They usually bring these in October and November, which is the worst time to put these things in the ground. And number 2, a lot of these are grown in Florida or Georgia, and they just don't have the genetic hardiness. So you might grab one of these, say, oh, I found it at Home Depot, it's a great price, plant it, and then it dies after a couple winters when it gets cold, and then you throw your hands up and say, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. These aren't going to work here. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. We have online sources where you can get these, and also they really grow well from seed easily, very easily. And if you know somebody who's got them, they'll be glad to share seeds with you, and the seedlings grow quick. But the needle palm on the left, this is in Sterling, Virginia, is just the toughest thing out there. It does not have a trunk. eventually the base will kind of get a little bigger, but not the trunk technically. The windmill palm, which is on the right, is the least hardy of this group. If we get some really bad polar vortices, the tree will be damaged or possibly killed. Or you may have to wrap the crown completely. But I'm trying to focus on things here that you don't have to do anything to as far as winter protection. This is my backyard. This is a current photo. I planted a lot of these palms over the past 10 years. This sable miner on the left is called Emerald Isle Giant. Origin is on Emerald Isle in North Carolina. Sable, Louisiana on the right is probably over 7 feet high right now. So really fast growers. Excuse me. They love water. They love fish fertilizer. I'm testing this Sereno repens in the front, which is a blue silver saw palmetto, which is native to a little further south. So I'm going to see how that goes. You can also see on the far right my Thomasville citronge quad tree. This is a current photo I took about 2 weeks ago. It's pretty much evergreen, unless it gets really cold, then it'll defoliate and releaf in the spring. So mine has not fruited yet. So I'm looking forward to hopefully this year getting some on there. Just want to give you an idea of how quickly these grow. The photo on the right I got from a friend in 2019 is what's called a strap leaf seedling. The picture on the left here was just last month. So they really do grow quickly. They make a great evergreen planting. They're green all winter. Here's the big one. This is when I planted it here on the left. And here it is today at about 7 feet. Same friend in Virginia, in Annandale, with his needle palm in the middle here, and his windmill palm on the right, which is still there, by the way. I think he planted this in about 2003. This is the front of my house. I have a sable miner called Cape Hatteras Blue, which obviously came from Cape Hatteras area, North Carolina, the coastal area, and it's done extremely well. It's been there for 10 years. This bed faces due west, so it gets a lot of wind in the winter, and other than a little physical damage on the leaves, it's done really well, and it's nice having that evergreen there also. This is my friend's needle palm in Reston, which is about 30 years old in this photo. Out in the open along the street. It's called a needle palm. You can't quite see it, but around the base where the leaves go in, there's like 6-inch long needles that'll get you. So you got to be careful if you're in there pruning or doing that kind of thing. But it's a tough plant. It's a great tough palm. This is a sable miner at my friend's house that is actually 30 years old when I took the photos. You can see the size these things get. And this is in Reston, so it's pretty much out near Dulles Airport. This is actually a close-up of mine, the trunk, if you want to call it that. It will slowly develop a trunk, but it takes, in our region, it takes years. And here's another shot, needle palm on the left, sable miner on the right. They do tend to flower very prolifically, the sable miners and the sable Louisiana. And you get these seeds drop on the ground. You can see some of the seedlings right here, and that's where these came from seeds that dropped. And there you can see the seeds on the left, and this right here is behind this one where I left these seeds on one year and they just dropped down and came up. So I dug these and gave them away. But they're very easy from seed and remarkably quick. And it's like anything else when you grow a tree, you can talk about, I need to plant a tree in my yard. I need to plant a tree. And then before you know it, 5 years go by, 10 years go by. Instead of just planting even a 10-inch tree right away. And then before you know it, you've got a nice tree. Well, the same thing applies here. If you want to try it, just do it. Here's some more seedlings. I just poke the seeds in the ground and then subsequently move them. Also, the sable minors tend to have this swollen trunk on, which once they're bigger, it makes it really hard to transplant. But these are the perfect size right here. As long as you don't break this swollen part in here, they're good. They love tons of water when you plant them. Here's give you an idea here. I planted this up top, then 1 year later, it was already pushing out full size fronds here. And this is an Emerald Isle Giant Blue, which is from Emerald Isle, North Carolina. These sable minors have been at the Air and Space Museum for decades. I don't know if they're still there. I was down there about 10 years ago, but they're in a raised bed too, so they don't have the protection of being totally in ground. But they've been there forever. And this I wanted to put up here. My friend in Kansas, Wichita, Kansas, just to give you an idea of how tough these are. They don't protect these. And these have been probably 10 years at least. But you can see how big they are, and these beautiful evergreen blue-green fronds. Fronds is the name for that leaf. But just very tough plant, really is. And there's Jacob behind the sable minor, and he's about 6 feet tall, so they're big, and just a great plant to fool with. There's some flowers that really kind of surprised me too. Hardy ginger, excuse me, hardy gardenia, and hardy exotic bulbs. Hybranthus is in the rain lily or the Zephyranthes family. I don't know if anybody's familiar with rain lilies, but it's the same family. But I stumbled on these about 10 years ago also from a hybridizer, and I've got probably 12 or 15 different species in the yard. And the cool thing is they bloom during the season every time it rains. Even if you get 1/100th of an inch, there's something in that rainwater that triggers the bloom, and 4 or 5 days later, they're all in full bloom. And then it just repeats over and over and over. It's a hardy bulb. It's small, like a crocus bulb. And I've had them here. I had them in Germantown. And had success with them, and I have them here also with no issues. They really have some incredible looking flowers. These are standard rain lilies here. Most of the colors are pink. There's some yellows, kind of crocus size flowers. But again, it's a great no care plant. You can see it's got this grassy green foliage. It's pretty much evergreen, and then it will die down late in the winter. But these plants are so reliable and so easy. They do like a lot of sun. You want to put them, if you plant them, where you can see them up close, like along a walkway or something. They love the heat and the sun. And these are all from my yard, and there's just endless combination of colors and patterns. This was another one that surprised me. I had a friend who several years ago had amaryllis blooming that he had planted in the ground. And he told me, he got tired of moving the pots in and out. So anyway, most of the amaryllis you buy, not all, but most, and you have to just experiment, that you would buy for Christmas to force are hardy in our region in the ground. And again, I've got some sources listed later. But these just continue to surprise me every year. They bloom every spring. And when I first read about these, apparently the key to these is to plant it with just the neck of the bulb, just an inch or so below the soil, and maybe a normal inch or two of mulch on top. And that's it. So this is another one to try that will amaze everyone at the results. They love this one. Obviously loves the microclimates, the hot sunny areas, that kind of thing. I had some in a bed in the yard that did just as well. So again, the big thing here with all these plants we're talking about today is to just experiment, try them in your yard, see what works for you. Um, this Hymenocallis or Ismene, which is the white flowers here, have been another incredible one that is sold as a non-hardy tropical bulb. I've had them in the ground for 10 years. They bloom sporadically, off and on, every summer. They have an incredible fragrance, but very exotic looking. The leaves look very much like amaryllis leaves, very thick green leaves. There's also a pale yellow one called Sulphur Queen. This one here surprised me too. It's been around for forever. The Mexican shellflower, or Tigridia. These flowers are probably 4 to 5 inches across, and they bloom off and on most of the summer. They're a bulb, a small bulb. And for me, they've come back the last 4 years without doing anything to them. So it's another one to try. It really adds a lot of color to the midsummer garden. Crinum lilies are another one that are surprisingly hardy, that are worth trying. They have these kind of amaryllis-like flowers. It's an old heirloom southern plant, the crinum lily. And I always associate that, meaning they were really tender, couldn't grow them up here, but I have probably half a dozen varieties at least that have gone crazy in my garden. They like a lot of sun and water. This one here is my favorite on the upper left. This year it had like 7 or 8 stalks at one time. And if you go after some of these new hybrids, they're rebloomers. This one bloomed probably 4 times during the season. It's got a nice perfume. They're mostly pink. Some are different shades of pink, like this one here. This one is more white with pink on the edge. This one's actually called Pink Perfume and has a nice fragrance also. This bottom right, this X Amacrinum, is actually a cross between an amaryllis and a crinum lily. And that's been a great performer too. I saw that years ago at a garden I visited in Silver Spring, and he had them everywhere. And this one will bloom a couple times during the season. No care other than good soil and average water. No winter mulch needed or anything like that. And it has a big fat bulb, very, very similar to an amaryllis. And the only difference is between the amaryllis and the crinum or the amacrinum is these bulbs should be planted deeper, maybe 6 inches, covered with 6 inches of soil, whereas the amaryllis, you want to keep that neck of the bulb just an inch or two below the surface. This is another fun one here I've grown over the years, sugarcane. And it's amazing how easy it grows here. It basically looks like a big grass. This one called Pele Smoke, which are these 3 pictures here, has these dark purple black canes, pink stripe on the leaf. And in the fall, if you cut this cane and peel it, you can actually chew on it. I mean, it is sugar cane. It's edible. And it's kind of neat. I got this Kava Ranji I ordered from eBay this year to try this year because of the nice red coloring, but this is supposed to be one of the sweetest ones out there. The hardy ginger is another incredible plant. This is maybe my favorite hardy tropical, if you will, that blooms in the summer. I got this from a friend 10 years ago. These flower stalks are covered with hummingbirds and hummingbird moths in the summertime. And they have these huge peachy orange flowers that can be up to 17 inches long. Plants themselves grow 5 to 6 feet high. And the thing I like about this one, if any of you have grown hardy ginger in our area, these bloom early. They start blooming in August, and you'll get another stalk or two at the end of September into October. A lot of the other gingers might be hardy in our region, but they bloom so late that they just get hit by frost and we never get to see the flowers. But this is great. Excuse me. The white butterfly ginger has a fragrance like honeysuckle. And this one is also pretty incredible. It grows 4 to 5 feet tall, blooms reliably, loves a hot, sunny location, incredible fragrance, and a long bloom period, usually sometime from late August into early November, off and on. There are several hardy gardenias out there to try. Frostproof is one of them. There's probably at least a dozen varieties. And this is another one that you want to give it a good microclimate, kind of protect it from the winter wind, I think more from the desiccation that the cold winds do than anything. But genetically, it's good. It's hardy, and it should bloom well for you. Again, good soil, lots of water. I tend to use fish emulsion on everything in the summer, and some people think I go a little overboard, but all these pictures I've shown you from my yard, I have religiously watered and used fish emulsion once a week, every single week, usually from June through September on these plants. And that makes all the difference in the world. It really does. Pineapple is another easy one. I harvested this one this summer. Incredible sweet taste. You can actually grow a pineapple from a pineapple in the store. You just take this crown, this green crown, twist it off, peel back some of these lowest leaves, and you expose like an inch or two of stem, and that will root in water or in potting mix, like with perlite in it. And what you do is put these out in the summertime, give them all the sun and heat you can give them, keep them watered. Usually it takes 2 or 3 seasons, and you'll get a pineapple. In the wintertime, I just bring them inside. They basically just do fine with bright light inside. You don't have to keep them going or baby them. Just water them, keep them from drying up completely, put them back out in May. But this is another fun one to try. I think this one here is the white jade, and it's in the Bromeliad family. I've grown Kona sugarloaf before, which is in my opinion, is the best one because there's no core. So you just peel it and eat the whole thing. And it was pretty incredible. I got a lot of sources listed here, a lot of links. Like I said before, I'm going to send this to Steve as a PDF. And then when you get it, you can click on any of these and take you to these websites. I've ordered and know most of these people for years now. Very reliable stuff, good pricing. If you want what you saw here in this presentation, you really can't find it at Lowe's or Home Depot. So I learned that years ago. You need to go to these specialty, either a specialty nursery if you're lucky enough to fall. Like Merrifield tends to have a lot of unique stuff and might have some of this stuff. But my big concern, again, on the hardy palms and the eucalyptus are making sure you get the varieties that are of the correct provenance. So they have the genetics to be hardy and do well for you. There's a lot of groups on Facebook with all these. I put that link on eBay. This is the guy where I've gotten all my crinum lilies and my zephyranthes, my rain lilies. Etsy's another great place. Obviously, you have to check out the buyers and make sure they have, good reviews and good stuff. But I found a lot of good stuff out there. And then, sorry, this last link was an article, I think that just came out yesterday on a couple, they live about a mile from me in Delaware here, and they have been growing in-ground Florida citrus since I think about 2005. And it's a really neat article. So you should check that out and see. I mean, obviously that's more work. You do have to do the protection. It's one of the few things that I've talked about today that you have to actually work at protecting if you want to get it through the winter. But everything else pretty much on its own. I don't believe in protection of most things. I believe in proper siting, good soil, keeping them watered. And as many of you know, even this fall or winter right now, I think I saw the last map and we're in a moderate to severe drought. We're down almost 6 inches of rain since October. So I think that can kill more of any plant, whether it's the ones we're talking about here or an azalea or whatever, a holly. If you've got a relatively new plant and no water, that's not a good formula. But anyway, so I hope you enjoyed everything. And that's it. I put my email here if you have any questions, and hopefully, you might want to try some of these things for yourself and see what results you get.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
I think Sue has some questions for you.
Yes, we
Okay.
do. And thank you, Joe, very much. The first question is the citrus that you talked about that are growable in Maryland still subject to pests and pathogens that have hurt the citrus in Florida?
Oh, Sue, I did something bad. I muted Joe. Joe, I'm sorry. I muted you by mistake.
I got it. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm familiar with the citra greening, whatever. I don't think I haven't heard anybody in our region talk about that or complain about it. I think the worst is probably, sooty mold or aphids that I've heard of. And it's not a high maintenance kind of thing, at least from, like I said, from everybody I know that's growing these, I have not heard anything to that effect, except occasionally, with the aphids and sooty mold sometimes.
Thank you. The next question is, what about deer with all of these various plants?
That's a great question too. And my friends in Virginia have a lot of deer, and so far, pretty much everything I've talked about today, we have not seen deer damage. Now, of course, everybody knows there's no guarantee on that, but over, 20 years now, I have not heard of any deer damage.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You talked about weekly fish emulsion and water. Is there anything you want to elaborate on the watering and fertilizing schedules?
Yeah, just real briefly, I've been growing plants. I was a nerd as a kid, so since I was probably 8 years old, and I just learned all this stuff over the years. But I learned if you take care of these plants, to put it simply, it's just like having a great vegetable garden. You can't strip the sod and dig a hole in the clay and stomp the tomato plant in and go, oh, I never have any luck. So you have to understand the basics. I don't think you need to go overboard, but you got to have, the soil needs to be amended if you need that for that plant. You need to understand that the most important thing for any new plant is to establish a good root system and not push the top growth, which means you need to do things that will enhance root development, whether that's a root stimulator, microbes and mycorrhizin, all that kind of stuff. I try to focus on all that initially, plus regular watering to get the plants established, because if you get good root growth, you're going to have good top growth. But if you push it, everybody, unfortunately, the whole marketing thing for decades has always been, oh, it looks bad, fertilize it, fertilize it. And you all probably know this, but that's the worst thing you can do for a plant that's struggling, because now you're pushing more top growth and you don't have the root system to support it. So I think it's important just to understand the basics like that. I think I found out about the fish emulsion from a friend of mine who was growing a lot of the same stuff years ago, and except his stuff was like 2 or 3 times the size of mine. I said, "What are you doing?" And he told me. So I committed to that. And when we moved to this house 10 years ago, I had an empty lot. I planted all my trees, pine trees, shade trees, and I used that same philosophy with those, and the growth just exploded. And then once you get that going in 6 or 7 years down the road, then you just back off. You just provide water when you need it, and that kind of thing. So, I mean, I hope did I get off topic, or did that answer the question?
No, I think that was a great answer. Could you
Okay.
bring your email back up? We have a request and then we do have a couple more questions.
Okay, let's see here. Yeah, it's right there. It's bocajoe@comcast.net. This will all be in the PDF too that I'm going to send to Steve.
Right. I was just trying to be thoughtful of the people who asked in the chat.
Okay.
The next question is, have you ever grown pineapple guava?
No, but I have a friend who has, and he gives it minimal protection, meaning like with burlap and that kind of thing in the winter. And he's had some success with it. I have it myself, but that's the kind of thing where you just need to try for yourself. And if you never know.
And 2 more questions. What type of soil do most of these plants like? The guess is that it's sandy, well-drained coastal, but
Well, actually, no. The hardy palms, all the hardy palms I talked about, and even the ginger and the eucalyptus, do not like over amended soil. They do great with our clay with minimal amendment. And just, break it up, normal 1 to 2 inches of mulch on top, that kind of thing. They actually will not thrive as well if you over amended the soil, like you would for a vegetable garden. That's not necessary for just about everything I talked about today. In fact, the sable minor palms, where they're native to, are poorly drained soils, lowlands, that kind of thing. And I know especially the eucalyptus, they do not like amended soil. They just want the clay to break it up enough to plant it well, keep it watered, that kind of thing. So I guess the answer is you really don't have to go overboard.
and now I still have 2 more questions. Do you
Go ahead.
top dress the fish emulsion or dilute it with your watering?
I bought one of those Miracle Grow sprayers that goes on the end of the hose. And what I do is I just take the empty container, fill it with the fish emulsion, and just turn it on and spray. And it benefits the plant as a foliar or in the ground. I personally like to do it just on the ground, only because in the summertime, if you spray the foliage with the fish emulsion, sometimes it's not going to damage the plant, but it'll leave spots and stuff behind, and it just looks kind of messy. So I'd rather either spray the whole plant and then quickly rinse the leaves off, or just focus on the ground. But either way works. But you're not going to damage the plant by spraying or not spraying the whole thing. But obviously, the most beneficial is to get it right in the ground with the plants.
And the last question is specific to palms. Should I water today even if it will freeze tonight?
Yeah, that's not going to matter. You're better off getting the water in there. And I think I've seen more damage to these plants I've talked about today with dry winters like we've had now than the cold. Absolutely. And if you don't believe it, go out in your yard with the trowel and just go into a bed and pull the mulch back and dig down and see how dry and dusty it is.
Yeah, no, you're right. Everything is so dry. Those are all the questions in the chat. And for all of us, thank you, Joe.
Well, you're welcome. I really enjoyed that. I hope everybody learned something and maybe try some of these things.
Thanks, Joe. Hey,
All right.
Again, I want to thank everyone, or thank our tech team for helping out today and facilitate the meeting. Thank you, Joe. And
Okay.
just going to wrap things up here. Just going to let you know our next meeting will be online again in February and also in March. So the next two meetings will be online. Then in April, we'll go back to meeting face to face. So our next two meetings will be online. And looks like it's a pretty decent day out there. Go get outside, enjoy some of the weather. It's a little seeing the sun here the last couple of days, which is nice. So I'm going to wrap things up here. And thanks, everyone. I'll hope to see some of you guys soon in face to face.